Hi, my name is Jennifer, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to factor polynomials when the leading coefficient is negative. Take a look at this first problem, negative 3x plus 15. So remember, factoring is writing the problem back into a multiplication problem. To do that, we're going to see if they have anything in common. But notice that this problem begins with a negative coefficient. In algebra, this is a big no-no. The leading coefficient can never be negative. So when we find that common term, we're also going to pull out this negative symbol as well. 3 and 15 both have the number 3 in common. But because this is beginning with a negative, we're also going to pull out that negative symbol. So we'll put negative 3 on the outside. And we're going to draw our parentheses because we're writing a multiplication problem. Negative 3x, when you take out a negative 3, it's a positive x, because negative 3x divided by negative 3 is a positive x. Next, 15, a positive 15, divided by a negative 3 is a negative 5. And we can go ahead and check our work. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 5 is a positive 15. So the answer to this problem is negative 3 times x minus 5. Okay, let's take a look at this problem. Negative 4y squared minus 6y. And we're asked to factor this problem. This problem also begins with a negative coefficient, which is a big no-no. You cannot have a polynomial when the leading coefficient is negative. So when we factor this, we need to pull out the negative number. The number negative 4y and 6y, they both have a 2 and a y in common. And we're going to go ahead and put the negative with the minus 2y. We're going to draw our parentheses because this is a multiplication problem. When you have negative 4y squared, and you divide out or you factor out a negative 2y, you're left with a positive 2y. Next, over here we have a minus 6y. When you factor out a negative 2y, you're left with a positive 3. So the final answer to this problem is negative 2y times 2y plus 3. Okay, let's take a look at one more problem. We need to factor the trinomial negative x squared minus 5x plus 50. Again, notice that it begins with a negative value. Before we factor, we need to factor that negative out. But if we look at our terms, each of our terms, it doesn't have a common term besides 1. So for this problem, we're simply going to factor out a negative 1. Next, let's rewrite the trinomial after we've factored out the negative 1. Negative x squared, when you factor a negative 1 out, or if you divide by a negative 1, you're left with a positive x squared. Next, a negative 5x, when you factor out a negative 1, that leaves you with a positive 5x. And a positive 50, when you factor out a negative 1, or when you divide by a negative 1, you're left with a negative 50. Now, we're not quite finished with this problem because I think we can factor this trinomial. So let's give it a try. We're going to keep the -1 to the outside, and we'll draw 2 more sets of parentheses to represent the new multiplication problem that we're about to write when we factor. X squared will give us an x and an x. Now 2 numbers that multiply to -50 but add to +5. It would be a +10 and a -5. So the final answer to this problem is -1 times x plus 10 times x minus 5. Now, if you have any other questions about this topic, please contact your professor or stop by the Math Tutoring Lab or watch this video again.